Halloween season is here. Spooky time on Foresttales channel. The father. Michael was turning 88 years old that night. He was sitting alone in the kitchen with a cupcake and some candles and a biscuit for Trickster 3, his dog. He couldn't remember the last time he had a proper birthday party, but he also didn't have anything to celebrate in a very long time. Michael had a family. Lisa was his high school sweetheart, and they married as soon as he graduated. His first son Charlie was born in the same month Lisa finished school. They moved to a small but comfy house, and even having little money, they were happy. After Charlie, Sophia and Nadine were born, with 2 years difference between each kid. Michael had a good job in the sugar factory, and due to his dedication, he became a manager in production, so their life got better when the kids were still young. So, they moved closer to the city, to a bigger house that would allow the kids to have their own rooms and had a remarkably good price at the time. They moved very happily and adopted a dog, since now they had a large backyard for him to play. His name was Trickster, and he was the first of their family. After a couple days there, his younger Nadine, around 4 years old, started to have nightmares, to sleepwalk and sometimes even pee in her bed. That was very unusual, and the priest told Lisa he believed it was the moving that probably made her uncomfortable and was giving those symptoms. Probably everything was going to change for the better when summer came, and she could play outside. Lisa listened to him and stopped worrying about it. But Nadine was changing behavior. She used to be talkative and happy and became quiet and melancholic. Sophia one day told her mom that Nadine was saying weird things, and that's why she only wants to play with Charlie now. What things? Lisa asked. About an old grumpy guy living in our attic. He would follow her everywhere, asking to hug her and hold her in his lap. Lisa was shocked and couldn't imagine why Nadine would invent these things. Lisa then told Michael about the situation, and being very concerned, he went to the attic to look for the evidence of someone hiding there to be sure. He found some old stuff from the previous owner, including some toys that apparently his kids have been playing with, but no sign of an invader. He locked up the attic and forbade the kids to go upstairs. But Nadine wasn't getting any better. She was sleeping with her parents now, and the nightmares never stopped. She would dream about the old man trying to touch her, and she couldn't see her face, only his pale hands of a dead body. In her nightmares, she was always alone in the house, couldn't find anyone from her family, only that faceless man. Tricksters were always barking to the locked attic door, sometimes in the middle of the night, scaring everyone in the house. She would struggle in bed with intensity, so that sometimes both Lisa and Michael had to hold her to keep her safe. So very often, Nadine was tired, sad, and full of bruises from her night terrors. Lisa went back to the priest asking for his help, and he decided to pay them a visit. According to Father Marin, there was probably a demon in the house, and, if he confirmed his suspicions, he had to purge it. On the day of his visit, Father Marin didn't notice anything wrong with the house or the kids, even being evident that Nadine wasn't in good health. He asked then to Nadine be taken to a doctor. They did it accordingly, and the doctor couldn't identify an illness, only light dehydration and some bruises. It didn't take long for the cops to show up in his house with a social assistant to speak with the children. They all attested to the veracity of their parents' story, and they were left alone for a while. One day, Lisa listened to some yelling at the front garden and Trickster howling, and watched in horror as Nadine convulsed and drooled some sort of greenish goo. Lisa asked for help, but when the ambulance arrived, it was too late. Poor Nadine passed away, only a few days after completing 5 years old of a mysterious cause. The family was in grief. It didn't take long until Sophia started having nightmares as her little sister used to have. She could also see an old man as Nadine described, but, in her nightmares, she could see her little sister in his lap, and her cheeks covered with the green dry vomit. Sophia started to blame her parents for not protecting Nadine from the old man and desperate believing she was going to be next. Charlie, that until then was very quiet and isolated, started fighting his sister, showing an uncommon aggressive behavior. Their fights would happen more and more frequently, and due to their wounds and neighbors complaining, the cops returned. Lisa was accused to abuse her kids, since she was a housewife and her daughter would, inadvertently, constantly repeat that it was Lisa's fault that the old man took her little sister. With time, the investigation found no evidence of abuse and the children understood the gravity of their behavior, so the charges were dropped, and the kids could go home. But by then, in a small town like theirs, the story spread, and the reputation of their family was ruined. The kids were suffering bullying at school and Michael lost his job. Lisa was so disturbed with the situation that acquired drinking habits, and she started to see the old man herself, yelling at him, "Leave my family alone, you monster," every time she was drunk. Michael did his best to help her, but she started losing her mind. Lisa started saying that the old man was her new husband now, that he was giving her pleasure as Michael could ever do, and that she didn't need him anymore. That was his limit. Michael took Lisa and drove her to her mother's house and said that she could only go back home when she was sober. Lisa never went home. She left her mother's house 1 week later and disappeared for good. Michael became bitter cold, and without any assistance to raise his children, he barely could keep the house. He became distant and his children grew in misery and melancholy. When they were teenagers, Charlie went away without any explanation, and Michael only knew about them when he was arrested in another state. He wrote to his son, asking permission to visit him, but no answer ever arrived. Sophia got pregnant at age 15 and didn't finish school, moving to her boyfriend's house and leaving Michael, finally, alone. She took the old trickster with her, so he adopted Trickster too to not feel so lonely. His grandson made his joy for a couple of years, and Michael almost remembered how happiness felt like. However, when he was only 12 years old and his beloved Sophia 27, they had a car crash and there were no survivors. Somehow, Michael believed it had to do with the old man. He had never seen the old man before, but Trickster 2 and his son Trickster 3 had always barked to the attic door, like if it was dangerous, especially at night. That old ghost cursed his family, he was sure. Michael sang happy birthday to himself and blew the candle. Nothing happened. He laughed and said, "Okay, Lord, I got you." It wasn't going to be the easy way then. He bit his cupcake and left the rest of it on the plate, pulling Trickster 3 with his leash to the attic. He unlocked that door after so many years and went in. It had years of old dust accumulated and spiders everywhere. Michael didn't care. He tied Trickster close to him and loaded his gun with 2 bullets. Just enough for his buddy, then him. Michael survived for too long alone and didn't want to do it anymore. Only 2 minutes and it was done. Michael opened his eyes, without understanding what had happened. Was he supposed to be moving? Something went wrong. He could hear Trickster barking downstairs, so it was only a dream, right? He went downstairs and watched a cute puppy running around the hallway and a pretty little girl running after him. Nadine. His eyes went wet, and he called her name, and Nadine looked at him. Her smile became a horror scream and she ran away as if she could see a ghost. Michael walked a few more steps and looked himself in the bathroom mirror. His jaw was loose from his face and the top half of his head was missing, leaving a bloody hole in its place. "Better cover this ugly face," Michael said out loud before walking back to the attic. Follow at Forest the Storyteller on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok for more. Check out our website to read more tales. www.forestplumptales.com